Hey everyone, welcome back here to my channel where I play Planet Zoo. My name is Nissa and today we are building for the Reticulated Giraffe. I think it's the first time I ever built a habitat only dedicated to giraffes, so I'm really excited for them. And they are not doing so well, so we will try here in future Life Sub-Saharan Africa to give them a future they can rely on. So if you want to hear more about that, or if you simply want to see how I built this habitat, then please keep watching. And we of course have a lot to go over today. So therefore I chose a few websites to look at, and they will all be linked below, one being Animalia, one thing being the IUCN Red List, and then we have Giraffe Conservation Foundation and San Diego Zoo, which normally I do not look at zoos websites because they can be very personalized to their specific animals instead of the species of animal. But in this case, I think there's some important stuff in here we need to take a look at. And I will note that these websites do not all agree on all of the facts, one simply being how many reticulated individuals we have out there. For instance, Animalia say 9,000, IUCN Red List say 11,048, and the Giraffe Conservation Foundation says 16,000. There can be a few reasons for this, basically that we cannot be sure that every single individual were counted in every single counting, and at the same time it's not really realistic that all of these websites were updated yesterday or even the same day, so therefore there can be a little bit of discrepancies here. So when I run into something that changes from website to website, I will mention it specifically, but besides that I will try to talk a little more freely so we can focus more on the important stuff. Now, when we talk about giraffes, I personally never think of them as endangered. I think that is primarily because it's one of the animals every single zoo have. Not necessarily the reticulated giraffe, but some kind of giraffe at least. And the most common person probably do not really think about subspecies in animals like giraffe. They more think about breeds when it comes to horses, dogs, and so on. However, I did notice that even yesterday I was watching the news and they did talk about penguin babies that are going for their first swim in London Zoo, and they didn't even mention the subspecies. So it's not weird that anyone can be confused about subspecies, and therefore if you see a giraffe every time you go to a zoo, it's not weird that you don't think of it as endangered. But they clearly are, one thing being that they have somewhere in between 9,000 and 16,000 individuals lived in the wild. But even worse does it get when they had around 36,000 individuals 3.5 decades ago, which is extremely terrifying, because if it only take around 35 years to halven the numbers that we have, then how long would it actually take to get rid of the rest of it? It's really terrifying, and therefore it's clearly about time something are done about this. Because of this massive decline, of course, they were added to the IUCN Red List in 2018, which is also the last time the IUCN Red List have a date for their countings, which were March 16, 2018. I mentioned this because there is again a possibility that these website didn't update the same time. I really couldn't find the specific article's date on the Giraffe Conservation Foundation, but according to them, later then they were added to the IUCN Red List. Their numbers have begun to increase. However, on the IUCN Red List, it states that the number are still decreasing. Just trying to clarify here, I'm sorry if it confuses anyone further. According to the IUCN Red List, the reticulated giraffes still live in Ethiopia, Kenya, and Somalia, though it seems to be limited to northern Kenya and southern Ethiopia and Somalia. One good thing that comes from that is that the numbers of them are not specifically fragmented, giving a good chance for these groups of giraffe to breed in between the different groups and therefore keeping new blood around, though they are still technically living in these smaller groups. The sad thing is that the specific threats for these beautiful animals are all human-based. We have two big categories, agriculture and aquaculture, and then we have biological resource use. The biological resource use is hunting and trapping, which is basically that they are being hunted or taking out of nature for human gains, either as something pretty to look at or to eat or anything like that. For on the agricultural and aquacultural base, we are staying with the agricultural, which is the use of non-timber crops and livestock farming and raising, which it kind of is a double-edged sword. Sorry, not double-edged, but it hurts the double amount, because simply the fact that the areas for the giraffe is taken away to be given to livestock eat their food, drink their water, and at the same time, because they are not specifically bovine, like we have issues with some animals, but they are still close enough related so that there are some agricultural animals that can carry diseases that can hurt the giraffes. The animals that are either hunted or trapped will normally be used for things as household items, food, or varying appeal or accessories. Normally we will see a split where some things are very local issues where the local people does this, and a lot of times we will see other things being very international, where people comes from other countries to kind of prey on these areas. In this case, all of the issues are local, which is kind of good and kind of bad. The good thing is that it isn't international white men or wealthy men that come to prey of these countries. However, it is still sad that these are people that knows these giraffes, knows their behavior, see them walk around on the savannah and stuff like this. So it is sad that they don't appreciate the living individual more than the dead. Therefore, it's extremely important to have underground in the local areas education and awareness programs, which could be simply in schools telling the kids about these animals and how to protect them, but it can also simply be in the local population. Again, if you live close to a hell of a lot of these beautiful giraffes, you may not think about that overall we actually end up losing them because you see so many of them. So these are extremely important things. Furthermore, there are also recovery plans and monitoring plans in place. For instance, San Diego Zoo have been a part of establishing so many cameras on trails on the ground in these countries, not only for the giraffes, that's the goal of it, but it will also help other animals. And they actually made an archive of these giraffes so they know when they go by if it's the same or if it's a new one, a different one. And again, yeah, you can keep an eye on the young, but that's not really the goal, because a certain part of the young will die before they grow up. The part that is important, the number we need to keep account on, is the adults that are actually breedable, because they have survived long enough to become breedable. These specific cameras cover more than 120 different trails, specifically in northern Kenya. And I will mention that San Diego Zoo are not the only zoo working for this, but I have heard that if you go to San Diego Zoo, they have kind of a showcase around this, also with donations where you can go and help if you want to. Furthermore, I will also mention that Giraffe Conservation Foundation is a place where you also can either go and shop some apparel. They have some really nice t-shirts and such, it looks like. And you can, of course, also donate if you feel like it. So again, I don't depend on you actually having to give your money out for these things. But if you want to, you certainly have the opportunity to. And I will mention that I have never been in San Diego Zoo myself, but from what I have heard, it should be a really nice one and beautiful one to visit. So again, if you are in the area, if you're on vacation there or simply live there, go and visit it. Again, even though you don't actually donate money when you are in a zoo, even just buying the ticket will help animals on a world base in most zoos nowadays. And you can always read about this on the websites. Be aware that all zoos that help animals in the wild will love to tell you about it. So if you don't know if you should pick Zoo A or Zoo B to go and visit, look at their website and actually look at what their money goes to and where you want to support. According to San Diego Zoo websites, they also list habitat loss and degradation, climate change as a issue at the same line as they mentioned poaching. However, I haven't seen that on the other websites. According to the IUCN Red List, there is they call it in place land and water protection, which they have their small things underneath where they say conservation sites identifies, yes, over part of the range. And then they say area-based regional management plan, no, and occurs in at least one protected area. Yes, it was in part of the range. And then they have invasive species control or prevention. And then they simply said not applicable because it doesn't make sense in this place. We have a few issues clearly going on with these giraffes, but one is simply an issue we have talked a little bit about before on my channel. But 95% of the giraffes are not in local government areas. And this is a bigger issue in some countries than others. Here in Denmark, it is simply, even though you own a place of land, it can be protected, and therefore you are legally not allowed to remove a pond or even a dirt hole or something. If something specific is living there, then you're not allowed, even though it is 100% your areas. That's the Danish law. However, it doesn't seem to be like that anywhere around the world, and therefore for these 95% of giraffes, they do depend more of the people owning the land where they live to do the right thing and help them out. This can of course be done with help for organizations such as, for instance, the Giraffe Conservation Foundation or San Diego Zoo, or bigger international animal health organizations such as WWF, which we have heard of a lot on my channel. I know it's my go-to, but it's just the one I always think about. And again, this doesn't mean that these organizations can just go in and save the giraffes, but they can, for instance, offer to the landowner to do XYZ to help out the giraffes, either helping out with saving the giraffes or saving the giraffes on their ground. Again, simply putting up a trail camera to help monitoring. You cannot do that without the owner's approval. And this means that it's very, very important to have that community going on. However, it does seem like this community and work togetherness is going on well and thriving in a lot of these areas, which is why we can not only help the reticulated giraffes, but a lot of animals. Again, remember that both Ethiopia, Kenya, and Somalia hold such a rich and diverse life for animals. And again, these simple trail cameras help so many animals. Clean food, enough food, clean water helps so many animals, but you don't only help the one, but a wide variety, and even also the predators, because if we run out of giraffes, gazelles, antelopes, bison, you name it, then we run out of food for the carnivores and they become an issue further along the way. So therefore, all of this works in a circle, and I'm so happy that there are people on the ground in the countries and in other countries working together to help these beautiful animals. For now, enjoy the cinematics, and I will of course come back afterwards for the outro. Okay guys, that's all I got for you today. As always, you know the drill. Like, subscribe, and turn on the bell notification so you know that next time I upload a video. I really hope to see you again, either in the comments below or in the next video. Bye guys.